Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Sentinels of the Multiverse Definitive Edition from Greater Than Games. Sentinels of the Multiverse is a game that I got when I first got into the hobby in 2011, 2012. I had the original flat box edition of the game, then they came out with the enhanced edition with updated changes and tokens and things and all that, and finally they have the definitive edition, which I have finally had a chance to dive into. This is a 1 to 5 player cooperative experience, although despite the 1 to 5 player count, you are always controlling a minimum of 3 heroes, even though I only have 2 set up over here. But you're always controlling a minimum of 3 heroes if you're following proper balance. You can feel free to do what you want if you don't want to follow proper balance, as you take on a specific villain. In this case, I have Omnitron set up over here, and you have the specific environment in play, so you have the Freedom Tower right now, and the game has that trifecta, the heroes versus the villain, and the environment that's going to sit there and mess with you, whichever side it's actually helping at any given point. The game structure is fairly cooperative. You're going to have heroes taking their turns, playing cards, triggering actions, drawing cards at the end of their turn, then the environment's going to go ahead and take their turn, and the environment's going to flip a card, and you're going to resolve the environment deck, and then lastly you're going to have the villain turn, or technically speaking, I should be more specific, technically it's villain, then hero, then environment as far as the cycle of play. So the villain takes a turn, plays a card, the heroes take their turns, then the environment takes their turn, and you repeat the cycle until you either defeat the villain, or alternatively, the heroes are defeated instead. And there's a bunch of things going on, but the core gameplay structure, as I mentioned already, you're going to go through those sequence of turns. Now, some of the changes they've made in the definitive edition is clarifying some of the process in place, as opposed to having to look into like every single card and reading what text says at the start of a turn, at the end of a turn. They simply have a start phase, a play phase, and an end phase for every single type of card in play. So you're going to go through the villain turn, and you're going to start with the start phase, which when you're playing against Omnitron, Omnitron wants you to discover a device card. So we're going to go ahead and discover a card, which means revealing cards on top of the deck until we got a device, which fortunately is the first one, which saves me a nice reshuffle, which is one of the complaints we'll have about this later. But we're going to have the device card, which is going to go in play. You're going to have that. Then you go ahead and resolve any phases in play. These are going to have different effects that go on. So for example, this device card has Exterminate. This card deals the 3 hero targets with the highest HP, HP, H-1 energy damage each, and then fabricate to discover a card. Now, those on their own don't necessarily mean anything, but we're going to be referencing those keywords as we go through Omnitron's deck. So Omnitron's done his start phase, he discovered the card. Now in the play phase, we're going to go ahead and flip Omnitron's card over here. He flips only once each play phase, but that's how he's going to flip. The various villains in the game are going to flip at different points depending on what's going on in the game. In this case, Omnitron's going to flip during the play phase. From there, we're going to resolve the end phase, where you look for any red text. There's none over here on these cards, but we're going to activate the Exterminate on each villain card, including any cards that are played this phase. So we're going to activate this Exterminate card, where this card is going to deal the hero targets with the highest HP, H-1, H is meaning the hero count, -1 energy damage each. So let's pretend we were playing with 3 heroes. Right now, absolute 0 over here would take 3 -1 or 2 energy damage, and boom, it goes down from 29 to 27, and boom, that's his health. We're going to go ahead and do the Exterminate on this card. This card deals the 2 hero targets with the lowest HP, H-1 melee damage, so we're going to take some melee damage, and various things in play might affect some of those results, but we're not going to deal with this right now. And then we have over here, Omnitron deals H energy damage to the hero target with the lowest HP, which is going to be Takian, so we're going to take a straight 3 damage to the head. Those are the 3 cards that are played, then that's basically his turn. From there, the heroes are going to take their turn. The heroes are going to go ahead, go through their own sequence, which is a very similar sequence. They're going to go ahead and activate, they're going to go through the start phase, resolving any abilities on any of the cards. Then they're going to go through the power phase, where they activate a power in play, which initially will be their main power on their cards over here. Slaps to 0 deals himself either 1 cold damage or 1 fire damage. You're like, why would you do that? Well, sorry, I apologize. I skipped the play phase. The play phase first, because the why we do that is important, because over here, Absolute Zero often likes dealing himself damage so he can mess with other players. So let's see what we have over here. We can do, no, that's not going to help us right now. We're going to go ahead and do, that won't help us either. That could help us, but I think we're going to start playing a high-yield coolant tank. So we're going to play a high-yield coolant tank. Let's play this to the left, right of my deck over here. And the end phase, either use 1 power or draw a card. We're going to do the power phase, where I could deal myself 1 damage, but I don't want to right now because I don't have cards in play yet that will benefit from that. And then we're going to go to the draw phase, where we draw a card. And then finally to the end phase, where over here, either use a power or draw a card. So I'm going to draw another card. So I now have a bunch more cards in play, where I can go ahead and start messing around with my abilities, well, hopefully a little better on my next turn. That's my turn. That's his turn. We're going to head to Takian over here. Takian's going to, again, resolve any initial start of turn phases. Doesn't have any. Going to look at the cards we have and potentially play a card. You only get to play 1 card on your turn. You get to play a single card. We have reaction, draw 1 card or play 1 card. If you play a card this way, destroy this card. This is useful when I'm dealt damage. Reactions happen when you dealt damage. I don't know if I wanted that yet. Maybe I could just do a 1-shot with X number of cards in your trash. I don't really have a trash yet. Oh, you know what? I'm going to start speeding up Lightspeed Barrage over here by getting quick insight into play. So I'm going to play, draw 3 cards, discard 2 cards. So I'm going to play this over here, and I'm going to draw 3 cards, and then discard 2 cards. Now it's going to be helpful because I'm going to start building up a discard where I can then use Lightspeed Barrage to deal a target melee damage with X number of cards in my trash, and then shuffle your trash into your deck. So let's go ahead and take a look over here and see what we got. We have dropped 3 cards and the Scar card. We have more. This is ongoing. Ooh, an ongoing. Drop to 3. Draw 1, play up to 2. Ooh, I want the expedited efficiency. We're going to do expedited efficiency. We'll discard these 2. We'll put that in my hand. And then in my turn, I'll go ahead and draw. Although, no, I could do a power first if I want. Reveal the top card of your deck. Draw it or discard it. Ooh, that's fun. Reveal the top card. I want to do all these cards. I think I'm going to draw it. I'm going to use that. That'll be helpful. I like Takken a lot, by the way. One of my favorite heroes, in fact, because the way she speeds through her deck and starts using things, she moves quickly. Either way, I'm done with my turn. I'm going to go ahead and draw a card finally for the end of my turn. And that's my turn. And then we go to the environment. We go to the environment, same exact sequence. You do any start phase, any play phase, any end phase. And we're going to go ahead and draw an environment card. So we're going to play an environment card over here, which is going to give us an ongoing effect. Each hero reveals the top card of the deck and either discards it or replaces it. So that's going to be helpful as well, and again, helpful for Takken as well. And then we go back to the villain phase. You're going to continue that cycle. That is basically the cycle of the game. The villain takes their turn doing their cards. You look at your cards, trying to make decisions around those cards, and then you go through the sequence of heroes, and then eventually ending off with the environment turn. And you do that until either the heroes are all dead, or until you defeat the villain. Now, when heroes die, they do flip to the alternate side over here, where they're still in play, able to help you a drop. They have their dying breath, their last gasp, and they're able to take a few actions every turn, less efficient actions every turn, but it does keep the heroes in play, so they're not completely out, even though they definitely will be less efficient as they go through it. But that's the game. On your turn, you go ahead and you play a card. Then you activate 1 power, and then you go ahead and draw a card, which may not seem like a lot, but lots of things you do. And in fact, you know what? Let's go to Takken's next turn just so I can show you what a turn would look like. That's a little bit more fun, because this is all set up. Let's show you one more turn, and then head into the review part. So on Takken's next turn, we're going to go ahead and we're going to deal expedited efficiency. So we're going to draw 1 card, and then we're going to play up to 2 cards. So now I can play 2 cards, which is very helpful, because anything else I can do to play multiple cards? Not offhand, but let's go ahead and draw 3 cards and discard 2 cards, because I can play 2. So we're going to go ahead and pop these into play. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, draw 3 cards, discard 2. So I'm going to discard these 2 over here. Okay, that's great. Excellent. We now have more discard going on over there. And then we're going to go ahead, and this is gone as well. These 2 are in discard area. We're going to play this as my second play, which says draw a card and play up to 2. So we now have 2 more plays. So you can start to see what's happening over here. We have 2 more plays, and we have 2 Lightspeed Barrages. Oh, this is going to be fun, okay? Oh, the Lightspeed Barrage, oh, that's tricky. The problem with the Lightspeed Barrage is it resets, so you have to be careful. So let's go ahead and play draw a card or play a card. If you play a card this way, destroy this card. A Synaptic Interrupt is good. It is good. I think we do have any ongoing cards. This over here, this one doesn't bother me at all. Dr. Stilson's Secondary Lab gives me some flexibility, so I don't mind that. And they're ongoing. You know what we're going to play? Here's our 2 cards. We're going to play this, destroy an ongoing card. So we're going to destroy the Disintegration Ray from the enemy. And then we're going to follow that up with Lightspeed Barrage, which Takken deals 1 target X melee damage, where X is the number of cards in your trash. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And even though 9 would be a little more efficient to take down the Omnitron, I want to take down one of these because they're hurting us. So I will go ahead and get rid of the Assault Drones, killing that bad boy. And then we'll shuffle our discard into our deck. That is a slightly cooler turn as far as how turns can go in Sentinels and Multiverse. You have, once you start setting things up, you can start acting on the things you set up, acting on the abilities you put into play, or the way you set up your deck, and have a strong turn where you just take things down in the game. And with that, let's go ahead, and I still haven't done my power, by the way. I still have power. I can reveal the top card of my deck and draw it or discard it. I didn't even do that yet, so I'm still having a turn that's only partially done. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into the review, starting off with ease of play. Ease of play is very hard for me to comment on. There's 2 different aspects of ease of play. There's general play in the game, there's learning the game. I learned this game 11 years ago. So it's been a long time since I learned the game, so all I can say is diving into the Definitive Edition was very easy. The rules seem very easy. The gameplay is not that complicated, but I also learned the game 11 years ago, and I have all that knowledge of how the game plays already in my head and present. But the basic idea is you go through a cycle of turns. You go through that start phase, play phase, and end phase, and you go through each of the steps one at a time for each, and it's all listed, by the way, on the back of the rulebook over here. You have this whole phase, so villains start, play, and end. Heroes start, play, power, draw, so you have those additional power and draw, then end. And environment is start, play, and end. And then you have all the keywords. There's like 6 keywords in the game. There's not a lot. There's a few other things in the rulebook that you might have to reference here and there, but very, very few things. The core gameplay loop is very solid, very straightforward. I think it is an easy game to pick up and play, whether solo or multiple players. As far as table space and game length table space depends on the players to a degree, but it's not a lot. It fits all very nicely in a small area. You can have a 5-player game in a fairly small area in this game. Your cards might start to get a little overwhelming if you have a lot, but it's manageable. And as far as game time, it can range depending on how many players and who you're fighting against. I'd say you're looking at anywhere between 30 to 90 minutes for this game. That is very variable based on the players, the sequence of play, the play style. There's a lot of variabilities. I would say generally in the 45-minute range or so, but as low as 30, as high as 90 for the game. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, there's a lot to like in this game, but the biggest thing for me, hands down the biggest thing, is just the sheer combinations of content going on here. You're going to have a stack. In fact, let's go ahead and show you. In fact, let's bring up this rulebook over here, this box. So in this box over here, we have all your villains over here, which we have 6 different villains, I believe. I think it's 6 villains if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have Omnitron there, perfect. Yeah, we have 6 different villains in the game. We're going to have like 12 different heroes, and we have 6 different bases environments, and the way you combine those things just gives you an absolute ton of content. Mixing up different pairings of heroes will absolutely change your gameplay experience. Playing as what's his even name? I can't remember half the names. Playing as Bunker, I love Bunker. Playing as Bunker versus playing as Hacken versus playing as Absolute Zero, entirely different experiences. And different experiences for better and for worse, which is one of the things you want to be mindful of if you're diving into this game. There are characters that are more straightforward and a little bit more rewarding. Bunker I find to be a very rewarding experience. Tachyon can be a lot of fun. Absolute Zero, until you start building Absolute Zero up, especially his starting ability, which is deal damage to yourself, until you start getting the cards in play that play and trigger, then your whole engine could potentially not really work. Some characters have a bit more nuance and depth to how they operate, and that nuance and depth gives them more reward when you play them correctly, but also means they're a little less rewarding if you dive into the first time. But there's just a ton of ways you can play out the experience and different ways everything interacts, and that's before we get into all the variant stuff. We haven't even talked about it yet, but the game comes baked in with a bunch of variant heroes and villains, and not only environments, we have different versions of different heroes. So you can play as Legacy, or we can go as playing as the original first appearance Legacy with different artwork, different styles, and different powers in play, which change the way you approach the game. And this is all we have in like the base set over here, but there are expansions. There's going to be the Rook City expansion. They also have over on Backkit right now, they have another expansion currently going, the I don't remember what it's called. The other expansion. It's called the 3rd expansion. Desperation, something along those lines. I can't remember the exact name of it, but they have another expansion, and I'm sure they'll have more content for the game. There's an absolute ton of ways you can engage with the way everything combines in this game. So just the sheer variety of villains, heroes, and environments are there. But more than that, the game has that sense of powering up for both yourself and the villain. The villain tends to start off a bit stronger, and you have to hit them hard, and they keep throwing new things at you in the game. But they start off definitely with the upper hand, slowly chipping away at your damage and health as you try to get your engine moving in the game. And different characters have different playstyles as far as how they build up those engines, but you have to get up and running, you have to start playing cards, and it has that initial slow tempo of playing one card until you start chaining abilities and making things work quickly in the game. But you have that tableau building, you have that sense of powering up, of starting off with the potential, but needing to actually combine and put things together in a way that actually triggers that sense of escalation in the game, that sense of escalation that you have to match and exceed the villain to ultimately take them down. And overall, there are good changes in the game from the original edition as well. The game, I don't know what all the changes and what's been changed. I know they've changed that start phase and end phase, making it clearer and easier to go through. I know they've done less things that ping off specific types of interactions, so it's just there's less token management in the game in general. And overall, they've made it a much cleaner experience, although still with caveats. We'll get to those and the things I don't like. But overall, what they've changed so far, and they've changed art and graphic design and a whole bunch of things, the changes I have noticed have all been for the better so far, but I can't say I've noticed all the changes. Even the fact that you have to play with 3 heroes, I believe that's a change to the new edition. I don't recall that being there in the original, and I think it's a balance thing, because I believe, if I recall correctly, playing as 2 heroes was always a bit harder, versus 3 to 5 had a lot more balance built around that. And lastly, I'd say this is a super quick setup and tear down to the game. This is a game that once you know what you're doing as far as the actual game, you can set up and get the game prepped to go in maybe 5 minutes, even if you're setting up the entire thing, all 3 heroes and all of that, assuming your decks come pre-shuffled, assuming you shuffle them from the last time you tore down, and it's a setup and tear down, just 5 minutes tops for each thing. It's a very quick and easy to play game. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, on a personal level, and I think I might be alone in this, I'm not a fan of the mixed art styles in the game. Comic book styles in general have different art to them, and that reflects the period of time. And this is all based on a fictional comic book universe, but they're still mimicking that comic book universe, and they still have that in play, which means they have, like, this is from that issue. They have little text on the cards. It's from issue this, and, you know, in, like, 1985. And so they have mixed styles of different comic book art to reflect the different time that that card or that thing is referencing, which is nice, but I personally find that I like a specific style of comic book art. In fact, the style I like is the style on the characters over here. I like that style and kind of wish it was there for the entire game as opposed to being in specific arts and whatnot. So I don't love that separate art styles, although very minimal complaint, and I believe a lot of people do actually like that the style and the changes they made there. Past that, it is still ridiculously easier to miss things in the game the more you have going on. They have cleaned up a lot of it. They've made it easier to track stuff. So one of the Sentinels' biggest complaints was always how much tracking there is going on, and all of that is much, much better and much, much easier. Also, you still miss things. You will still go through this game and you'll still be like, oh yeah, and I forgot to trigger that, and that modifies damage up 1, that modifies damage 1, and you have these tokens, you do. But it's still easy to forget all the ways things mesh together. Even though it is better than ever before, it is still a problem in the game. But those two things to me are still nitpicks. For me, the biggest complaint I have against Sentinels of the Multiverse is that for all the things I like about the game, I would say that a lot of the time, the sense of agency I have is not as present as I would like. Because you play a single card of turn, because there's no resource economy to it, more often than not, you're looking at a hand of 4 cards, and the card that makes the most sense to play is fairly obvious. It is fun. I enjoy myself. I like it. But I would say that 75% of the time, I'm doing the thing I think is obvious, as opposed to the actual difficult decision. Although those 25% are there and they're present. There are definitely times I'm playing through the game where I'm like, do I play this? Do I combine that? What if I try to trigger this to draw 2 cards? There are decisions to be made 100%, but a lot of the time, I'm just playing the card that makes the most sense from a hand of 4 to 5 cards in the game. And so that's the biggest complaint I would say I have against it. As far as I can see others not liking, first of all, the game has a slow start. You play 1 card a turn, you take 1 power turn until you have your engine built up. That means you can have turns where it just doesn't feel that rewarding, and I'd say especially at higher player counts, which I try not to play this game at higher player counts. To me, this is a great 3-player game, a great solo game, a decent 2-player game because of the management of the heroes, unless you're doing 2 heroes each, which you could do, but I would say that for me, this is a game that plays well at 3, well at 2, well at 1, decently at 4, starts to slow down, and I wouldn't want to play it at 5. And part of that just means that you have to wait a long time for things to come back to you, and you have a slower start and slower engine generating in the game. But additionally, even when you're playing it at 3 heroes, you still just have a slow start as you have to get cards out and play, and that can be something that slows down the experience to you and makes you feel like you're not having the rewarding turn that you like. I'll say also there's a lot of deck shuffling in the game. There's a lot of deck shuffling. There's a lot of times, depending on the villains, the heroes, all the things, it definitely does depend, but there are times where you just have to discover a card. You go through, you find stuff, and then it's like, okay, great, I flip a card, I have to find the next device, the next device, the next device, okay, great, we got the next device, boom. With Omnitron, you're going to be doing that every single turn, which can be, well, it depends, either ongoing or device, but that means every single turn you play Omnitron, you're shuffling their deck, which means I do recommend sleeves because your options are either riffle shuffling, or poorly shuffling, or sleeve pile shuffling, which to me is the best, especially when you're shuffling this much. It's something that it's not a huge deal, but it's certainly something that might be annoying. And that is basically it. I feel I had one more complaint, but I don't remember what it was, so we're going to go ahead and move on to final thoughts. Final thoughts of Sentinels of the Multiverse. I really like this game. I like this game a lot. I've liked all the versions of this game. I've played this game. I had this game when I first got into the hobby. I eventually moved on from it. I got back the Enhanced Edition. I liked that, but I still felt there was a lot of tracking. To me, the Definitive Edition has all the good things I liked about Sentinels and Multiverse, and it has the least fiddliness in the game. It still has fiddliness. It still has issues. You still miss things. You're still shuffling your deck. Those complaints are still present, and I don't want to pretend they're not. But it has the best version of the game that I've played to date, and the cleanest and easiest to process, and it's one that, at least for right now, I'm trying to hold on to and continue playing through because I like what the game is doing. It has a fun sense of just working together, playing cards, playing your heroes. You're living in this fictional comic book universe, but you still have that card play and the hero combinations and the different heroes that you like, that you don't like. You know, your friend likes this character and that character, and I like Tachyon and Bunker, and trying to mesh them together and picking my 3 favorite heroes and throwing them up against the villain I've had a hard time defeating. It gives you all of that in an easy to play, easy to get into experience that is a lot of fun while being a little light on the amount of agency I would typically want. It's still an enjoyable experience that I can easily recommend with a ton of variety and just fun baked into it. As far as rating, I almost forgot rating. Rating is a 4 to 5. It's a 4 to 5 for me. I like this game a lot. I really enjoy it. And the changes they've made for the most part just seem straight up positive changes to the gameplay system. And I'm eager to dive into Rook City and the other one whose name I don't remember right now. Desperation? I feel it's like Desperation or something. But I'm eager to dive into that one as well. As far as other recommendations, first of all, the obvious one is going to be Marvel Champions. If you like this and you want a system that has a lot more resource economy, a lot more things to manage, and a lot of deck building thrown in, Marvel Champions is one that I can easily and highly recommend you give a look at. A great game system that is harder to table, but more rewarding when you are able to table it. And then separately, if you're looking for a different but very similar feeling kind of game to me, although I definitely prefer Sentinels myself, Aeon's End kind of has a very similar feeling with the heroes and the build-up and the escalation and the villains you're trying to take down and the way the villains throw things at you. To me, they share a lot of similar notes as far as the way they approach a cooperative take down the villain kind of system, and I think if you like one, there's a decent chance you'll like the other, although decent because I think I personally prefer Sentinels, and Aeon's never clicked with me, despite feeling like they share a lot of similar DNA. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.